Thank y'all for coming. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. I think a few of you trickled in after I made the announcement. On the back chair where these ladies are, if you want to be put your name in the drawing for a free t-shirt, feel free and fill out a little piece of paper there with your name and email, and we'll draw that at the end. Also, it appears that Ballroom A is right there, and the only way to get to it is through these doors, so we might have some people kind of trickling in through the session. So if that bothers you, you can just move up to the front. You might be able to hear better, but we can go ahead and get started. Just by a show of hands, I'm really curious. How many of you are from Mississippi? Awesome. How about Arkansas? Yay. And Louisiana? Okay, good. We got a good diverse group here. Okay, well, let's talk about public spaces. I want to briefly start off the session by telling you a little bit about the small town center where I work, just so you know kind of the things that we do and the background behind some of these projects. We provide meaningful design and planning solutions for communities all over our state. We're not limited to work in just the state of Mississippi. We can expand beyond that, but all of our clients traditionally have been from Mississippi. We provide a lot of different types of services for communities. We also do research for communities on small town challenges. We are not limited to this range of services, but this just kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that we can do. We've been around for over 40 years, believe it or not. The School of Architecture started, and then we were formed very shortly after that. We've served over 100 Mississippi communities. We partner with lots of different folks across the state, obviously our university, and we have some national partners too. We teach a class each year, so we get students to work for us sometimes. They're involved in our classes. And then we also do some publications on small town research and projects. This is a really interesting fact. I don't think a whole lot of people know this, but Mississippi's Main Street got its start in partnership with MDAH and the Small Town Center. And it was actually housed in the Small Town Center when it got started in 1984. So the first Small Town Center director was actually the Main Street manager or director. So I thought that was pretty cool since we're circling back to Main Street activities this week. So this week we're here to talk about the power of place. And for the next hour or so, I want us to really zoom into our communities and think about the public spaces in our downtown districts. So in order to create a vibrant and economically resilient Main Street district, we need to better understand what public spaces are and perhaps rethink the role of public spaces to include temporary installations and small-scale projects. If I were to ask you off the top of your head, name a type of public space in your community, you would probably list all of these things, right? Playgrounds, parks, sidewalks, civic buildings, those are all public spaces that we can identify with. But think about the value of public spaces. They play a vital role in the social and economic life of our communities. The benefits of having good public spaces include supporting our local economies, attracting businesses, attracting tourism, providing cultural opportunities, reducing crime, improving pedestrian safety, and improving public health. But now let's zoom into our downtowns. This is a typical downtown. This is actually Starkville. Hopefully some of you got to tour Starkville yesterday. This is my hometown. I was actually born and raised here and found myself back here. So let's look at this downtown. When we look at this image, what do we see? Do we see a lot of public spaces? Some of us might argue no, but I want you to kind of analyze this with me. I would argue that our streets are public spaces, right? I'm going to show you lots of different opportunities for public spaces in these images. Our sidewalks are public spaces. Our parking is a public space, right? In some communities, business owners think that the parking right outside their business is actually their parking space, but it's not. Don't let them tell you that. Parking is a public space. It's hard to see on the right here. You can see this little kind of red area. This is an alleyway between buildings. I didn't have a great image of that, but our spaces in between buildings can be public spaces. And we also have civic buildings. In this image, I've kind of taken a liberty to add a couple of more civic buildings to our image here, but this is our city hall. It's the terminus of our Main Street, and then I pretended like these were public spaces. They could be, a fire station or police department, that sort of thing. But we do have civic buildings in our downtowns, most likely. And then, what's this up here, right? This isn't private space, right? Everything above our buildings that connects over our streets, the sky, that's public, right? So if you put all that together, I would argue that we have a lot of public spaces in our downtowns, and this gives us opportunity to play with that and create more public spaces for our communities to gather. So today we're going to talk about a number of different opportunities to intervene in our public spaces and create these opportunities for people to gather. These are the types of projects that we'll go through. So starting with number one, host a pop-up event. These are temporary, unexpected events in unique spaces. They pop up, and after a few hours or days, they pop down. They're temporary. They provide an element of surprise in unexpected locations, and they generate excitement and buzz. That's what they're for. They're typically part of a larger campaign or event in your community that you've got going on, and they're an easy way to generate awareness and spread knowledge about that campaign or event that you're trying to promote. And they can be really cost-effective ways to bring people to your downtown. So these are examples from elsewhere, but on the top left, it's a pop-up bar. On the right, this young woman took part of a sidewalk and just put a simple backdrop up and displayed some of her retail merchandise. On the bottom left, there's a space in a parking lot for games. And then on the right, somebody took a vacant lot and actually held a pop-up dinner. I'm going to show you a pop-up event that we hosted recently in May. It was an end-of-the-year school bash, and this was an opportunity to show off a product that we had just recently designed, but also bring people to the downtown, especially families and kids, so that we could activate the downtown and create a lively event. We received a grant from the Idea Shop. I think Jeffrey Rupp mentioned that earlier today with the Entrepreneurship Center. And so we received a grant from them to create a product that was seating and doubled as retail display. And so this is our product that we designed. But in order to show that off and really get it tested by kids, we wanted to have the pop-up opportunity for them to explore that. So what we did was one afternoon at the end of the semester, we borrowed 5 parking spaces from downtown Starkville. The city was gracious enough to loan us the traffic cones. We strung some rope, and then we bought a piece of turf. It was about $150. We called in the food trucks. They showed up. And then the kids came and activated the space. We actually bought crayons and paper, and they had games so they could create art and play games while they were there. And then I'll just show you, if I can play. This is a short time lapse that I took, but it drummed up a lot of activity in the downtown. And this was one of those days where it was about 112 degrees, and people still came and activated our downtown, which was really awesome. You can see the Idea Shop here. We also did a retail display for the event. This was a Photoshop rendering of what we wanted to do for the retail display component. And I realize this is private space. Well, actually, it's not. It's the makerspace for the community. But you can share this little tidbit with your retailers in your communities, because I thought it might be helpful. We spent about $600 and designed the window displays for this event. And then I'm going to try and play this too. And I wanted to show you what a great impact you can make in your retail shops when you just do this. You can design the window clings, and this is us installing them. It's just two of us. It took about a couple of hours to do the whole window. This is us getting started with the first one. We didn't really know what we were doing. Okay, and then we said, nope, that's not working. Let's try this. So they literally just cling to your windows, and then you get these squeegees and suck out all the air. It's supposed to move a lot faster than this, so I apologize. But this is something any of you can do in your communities if you have a pop-up event or you want to share this with other retailers as an easy, quick way to make a big impact in your downtown. Just this vivid display that we had in the windows, I can't tell you how many people walked by and just kind of stopped and came into the idea shop. And this is the final product. So very quick, easy, $600 on signs.com, really easy. Project details. I wanted to kind of walk you through some of the details of all of these projects so that if it's something you're interested in, you can understand how doable it is and find grants and opportunities to execute them. So again, we only took up 5 parking spaces. We held the event from 3 to 6 p.m. That allowed us a half a day of setup in the morning and really a little over a week to plan out the event and coordinate with the city. We only spent $150 on the turf, a few, less than $100 on balloons, candy, and crayons. We borrowed the seating from the previous project. We marketed it on social media, which you know is free. We borrowed the traffic cones. We reserved the food truck, which was free. And then we borrowed some games. So for under $200 or under $300, you can make a really big impact in your community and drum up activity in your downtown. This is another pop-up suggestion, or retail suggestion I wanted to show you. In Laurel, Mississippi, for example, they have historically had these wonderful banners that they put on maybe unsightly buildings or in windows, storefronts that were abandoned. I don't think you guys have any open retail right now, right? But I thought this is a great kind of way to use art and banners to populate your downtown. And this is a cool kind of floral pop-up shop that I found. So even your local businesses that have a specialty like floral design, think about ways to bring that product or that idea to the facade to really engage people on the sidewalk as they activate your downtown. The second idea I want to talk about is create a parklet or streetery. How many of you guys have one of these in your downtown or in your community? Okay. So some of you sort of know what they are. I'll just read this statement from Jane Jacobs. Communities need more than parks and plazas. Commercial activity is a crucial component of public life. Cafes are increasingly important sites for community interaction as other places for local exchange disappear, including banks, post offices, corner delis, and so on. Parklets present some hope for walkable local commerce. And as we all know, through COVID, a lot of these started to pop up, and they're especially important now. I think over the past year or so, we realize how important our public spaces are and how important our downtowns are. But Jane Jacobs makes an awesome point. Our banks, our post offices, those used to be the places for social interaction in our communities. And a lot of our small towns don't have those anymore. They don't have the bank and the post office and the grocery store. They have maybe one or the other, but those were the places of social interaction. And now that they're gone in some ways, we've got to create other opportunities for that interaction. And so this is one suggestion. So parklets are pop-up parks. They reclaim streets as places for people, not just people in cars. They're not privately owned public spaces. They're installed on public land, they're temporary, and can't be controlled by businesses. The benefits, they boost foot traffic. They make drivers more mindful of speed limits. They encourage alternative transportation if they're built near bus stops, Some of our communities are not large enough to have public transit, but some of ours do. People love them, and anyone can make one, and anyone can use it. They're public. There was a study in Australia that was done, and basically the community voted parklets as the #1 street activation. And the second most popular were street events and murals. And we believe that, the study showed that parklets were voted #1 because they are places for people to gather and interact versus murals and street events. Well, you can interact there, but they love the parklets the most because they want to be in the spaces. Seattle's research on business owners with streeteries found that 100% believed they improved their businesses, 83% reported increased foot traffic, 67% of the businesses reported increased sales, and 67% reported their customers engaged in more walking, bicycling, and transit use. So over the last year, it became very important to us to be able to create a streetery or a parklet for our small towns. And so we did just that. We worked with the city of Starkville to create a streetery. This is the design for that. Unfortunately, it has not been implemented yet. We did have a local attorney who felt like the public parking in front of his law firm was his, and so we had to work through an injunction. But needless to say, we are at a point where we can implement it now. But beyond that, we felt like it was important to create a toolkit for other communities. So this toolkit is actually available on our website for free. Anybody can download it and implement your own streetery if this is an idea that you feel like would be important in your community. Here's the design. We took up 9 parking spaces, and we chose the site based on the location, specifically because there were multiple restaurants along this side of the street. And this is actually where the most downtown restaurants are located. So it was a shareable space that both restaurants and other businesses in the community could use. It's really just designed as a shared public space. Our toolkit, you can see, is pretty extensive. We talk about what it is. I realize not everybody knows what a streetery is or a parklet. We talk about the benefits. We talk about how to engage the community. All of these topics, which I'll walk through briefly. So we talk about what it is, the benefits, the process. Where do you start, right? Who do you talk to? How do you address your parking concerns? Because everyone will have a parking concern, right? We talk about locating your streetery. Where should you do that? What things should you consider? Again, the parking concerns, ways to address that. Design, we have several suggestions for that. All the elements in the design, what you will need. Thinking about shade or heating, maybe in the winter, lighting, traffic separation, seating, landscaping, even thinking about the ground surface, making sure that runoff doesn't interfere with your streetery. How to build it and execute it. We even have a checklist at the end so you can make sure you have met all the components. We've given you a project budget and a schedule so that you can be realistic about how long it would take to design and implement this. And then, although we're not attorneys, we did a draft ordinance so that you can have a recreation district. So you might want to run that by your city attorney before you actually implement that. Again, here's the design. We're happy to consult with you if this is something that you're interested in your community, but I just want to kind of give you a brief overview of what it is and the resource that we have on our website for you. So another way to bring people to your downtown and create public gathering opportunities is to make an Instagram wall or an Instagram moment. Do any of you by chance, like, have you set out to do this? Have you made one in your community? Anybody? Yep, okay. Has it been a big success?
Huge. I'm downtown Hattiesburg.
Okay.
We have over 40 murals right now with a city goal, not just in our downtown, to have 100.
Oh, wow.
And then a lot of the private entities have their own. The Sanger has several public art installations, Lucky Rabbit, different property owners.
Awesome.
So we bought in. We're already in.
Good. Well, making an Instagram wall, I think the text got a little blurred here, but it's really a social platform that translates into social space. The images from people always travel a lot further through social networks than through the written word. We know that. We've seen that. Creating something like this is with the goal in mind to bring in foot traffic to your downtown. It also shares your local art with the public, which is a great way to share your local artistry. People search for the best spots to post information, and so, you know, if they're searching for a really cool Instagram location and they come to your community, that's going to bring in more interest into your community. There's now an app where you can search for Instagram wall locations, and so if you have one, you can post your information on that app, and it allows you to bring in more people. These are two really cool examples, I thought. This is one of the most Instagrammable walls in the nation, and this is actually in Los Angeles. And you can see it's just a pink wall. They chose an awesome color pink, but you can see all the people in front of the wall, and that's what they do. They just come and take their picture in front of this blank pink wall. So it doesn't have to be elaborate, right? I thought this was really cool. They took a wall and worked with the existing landscaping around it and worked it into the mural. These are a couple of examples on the left. In Ripley, they just have stripes, which is really beautiful. And on the right is a picture from Vicksburg, the riverfront. And, you know, you can make these very specific to your community and tell a story about your community and give a little information about where you are. The middle image is a mural done in Gulfport. We were there this summer. These are my kids and some friends. But what did I do? I put my kids in front of the mural, I snapped a picture, and I put it on Instagram, right? So you can kind of create very community-specific murals to bring people to your downtown. I think a lot of us have seen this one right when you come into downtown Jackson. This is a very strategic location for this mural because you come into downtown and this is the first thing you see. It's a very welcoming, beautiful mural that instead would be the backside of a really ugly building. So project details, you know, you can expect to start around $150 with materials and supplies. You know, you could get donated labor. Think about maybe a day's worth of installation. You could also expand this budget, hire a great artist, and make something a lot larger and a lot better. In terms of recommendations, you know, incorporate this into your larger art plan. How many of you have a public art plan for your community? Anybody? Okay. I think this is so important, and Randy, you may have already spoken about this or will speak about it, but you know, having a public art plan to find the best locations for murals, which are so popular now, or other public art is really important. Choose your location carefully, like the Jackson mural. That was a perfect location for that because it did a number of things. That was the place where people go to be welcomed. You know, in the Gulfport example, that was kind of an ugly railroad bed, so they wanted to kind of clean up that area and make it look a little bit better. it adds personality to an area. So think about where you want people to come. You know, some of us have communities where our downtown Main Street looks great, but maybe a few streets over is still in the Main Street district, but it's not so attractive. Think about putting some art or an Instagram wall down there. People will be attracted to that area and hopefully start to revitalize that area. And you can make it very community specific, like the Jackson and the Gulfport examples. Also consider the spaces around the wall. So in this example, it's not just the wall itself, but you know, they provided seating, some funky planters, you know, gives people an opportunity to stay and gather there. So let's think about crosswalks and intersections as another opportunity to intervene in public spaces. Some of us might not realize it, but crosswalks are public spaces too, and we can provide art or interaction there. They're a great way to unify your community and connect destinations. They also provide traffic calming. And again, consider this as part of your larger art plan if you have one. In Aberdeen, a few years ago, they were interested in improving the safety around their schools in the community. So we did a pedestrian audit, and we looked at all the crosswalks in the community and figured out which areas needed some, which needed to be repaired, that sort of thing. So we made a map here with all the suggested crosswalks. But what was most important to them was providing better access to their local elementary school. So we created and designed a crosswalk there to get folks from the parking lot drop off to the school. We created a very simple pattern so that it could be replicated and anyone could use it. It was very inexpensive. You know, this is just foam from Lowe's that we cut out. We had a diamond pattern, and we used school colors, so incorporating local school colors to make the design. Spent about half a day to make it. This is the final product. The kids loved it. They felt like it was kind of a hopscotch game. But this opportunity or this project really created an opportunity for them to replicate these around the community. We created a little toolkit for them and left the supplies there so that they could replicate this at the other locations. We spent about $150 on materials and supplies, and there was a lot of leftover paint, so think about that. It doesn't just cover one crosswalk. It could be used for multiple. We donated our labor. It was about a half day to install it. And then, again, if that's something you're interested in, we have a little toolkit. It's not on our website, but you can ask me about it. I thought this was a really cool community-specific example, too. This is actually at the Gulf State Park in Alabama. And again, just kind of incorporating local imagery into the crosswalk. You know, you don't have to have the big white stripes every time. You could do something like this, which is really creative. These are some other examples. The one on the top left is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and the local school there in this neighborhood needed some pedestrian safety for the kids to be able to walk to and from school. That was a concern of theirs. So they created these colorful crosswalks, and then they worked in the intersection to create art. So that's also an opportunity to kind of slow traffic, but also bring some beautiful art to the area. In the bottom example, this was a business district that did not have a whole lot of foot traffic. So they created this pattern in the intersection to hopefully draw people to the area and drum up business. And then in this example, this is kind of a funky intersection, right? At weird angles. And in some cases, in communities, they can build out permanent landscaping buffers. But in this case, they had a temporary installation of art, right? So they had art buffers that did their bump outs. And that really narrowed the street width so that it didn't take as long for people to actually cross the street. But again, looking at the intersection is another opportunity to provide art there. I thought this is a really cool example of how to intervene in your crosswalks and intersections. Okay, this is where you get out your phone and take a picture of all these grant opportunities, right? So where applicable, I've been trying to give you some grant opportunities to look into. Bloomberg Asphalt Initiative has a $25,000 opportunity to do the projects like I just showed you. Unfortunately, the deadline was in April. I think we are a finalist for this. We're hoping to get this. But it's a very competitive grant, and you're also able to do a lot with it. You can hire an artist. You can do multiple intersections, whatever your project might be. America Walks Community Change Grant is $1,500. And the cool thing about this one is it's not due yet. It's due at the end of the month. So there's still time to get your application in. Safe Routes to Schools, thinking about that opportunity for other grants around your school district. And then creative placemaking grants. If you just kind of Google that in, you'll see a lot of opportunities. Those all apply to projects like this. Okay, so let's not forget the canopy above us, right? These are a couple of examples in other locations. I think the one on the right is from Europe. But these are opportunities to think about what's above your street, right? These are great ways to create a unique identity for your community and just something whimsical. It doesn't have to be permanent. This is a project we did in Starkville. Mayor Spruill referenced it earlier. But this is a side street off of our local main street here in Starkville. Really not much to it, not a whole lot of retail. It's really just used for parking a lot of times. But during COVID, the mayor had a vision to create a public gathering space that was COVID friendly. And so we helped her create a lighting concept for a lighting canopy over Lafayette Street, analyzed all the facades of the buildings, and really analyzed exactly where we could connect lighting to every single building so that it would look smooth and continuous. Looked at the plan. This was a naysayer on the block. He didn't want his building touched. And so we developed a plan to work around that so you wouldn't really notice that that one building was missing. Here's the breakdown of the project. We used about 2,000 linear feet of lights, about 990 lights total. And the total cost for the materials was really under $4,000. This is the final product. Here you can see the downtown event that we hosted. We had Mike Leach, Coach Mike Leach, have a radio talk show inside this window. And so everybody could come outside and socially distance. You could actually get a Go Cup from the neighboring restaurants, come downtown to the street after it was blocked off with the bollards, and really kind of populate that entire street. Here it is at night. And then the cool thing about this is it's become an Instagram moment for our community. Here you can see people doing a little fashion show. We've also had people propose under the lights. What has kind of been an ugly eyesore of a side street has really become something beautiful after hours. Okay, so we used about $3,600 in materials. Donated labor was actually from our local utility company. I don't know the price estimate on that, on what it would really cost, and about $2,000 in design fees. Okay, let's think about alleyways as another opportunity, the space between our buildings. These are some examples from elsewhere. Some of you may have been to this one in Chattanooga. It's a really wonderful kind of umbrella canopy, and they've got lighting up there as well. I love this example from Vancouver because, you know, when we think about alleyways, they're usually dark and ugly and dirty. And so they treated it with the opposite effect. They painted everything very bright, vivid colors to really brighten it up. And then this example was actually just using some string strung across the buildings above that alleyway. These are some more community-specific themed alleyways in Ripley. Anybody here from Ripley? Is this your project? I should just get you to talk about it, Elizabeth. So this is Blues Alley, and I think you just did an awesome job with this because, you know, that's something local to the community and used, you know, things that really went along with that theme to brighten up and engage this alleyway. Fishbone Alley in Gulfport. Anybody from Gulfport here? Okay. If you haven't been there, it's a really cool alley, otherwise dirty, grungy, yuck. But they use this theme throughout the alleyway. This is my cute little 3-year-old modeling the Fishbone artwork that you can see all down the alley. This is another interesting project. It's called the Bradley Plaza Green Alley Project. And it really was designed to make more open space, clean up a really unsightly area, and then connect certain destinations. It also was pretty extensive in terms of their stormwater management. This is like kind of next level alleyway treatment, but I thought it was really cool. You can see the alleyway here in question, really gross, dingy, yuck, but then thinking about that ground surface as something to treat and make it more beautiful. Okay, another couple of grant opportunities. AARP has a community challenge grant. The money varies. They have a pot and then they divide it up, and that grant usually comes around in February, so be mindful of that. And again, if you Google creative placemaking grants, you can probably find something that you could apply to this project. Okay, thinking about empty lots. We all have one of these, right? Really ugly, empty lot in our downtown, and we don't know what to do with it. This is in Starkville. We worked with the Starkville Main Street on this project to design something to do with this ugly vacant lot. One of the concepts was to think about this adjacent parking and the street parking as an opportunity for food trucks. And so this vacant lot would just be an opportunity to kind of sit and eat food, gather. It would be kind of park space here. If you see on the back, this is kind of the dining area. Here you got the food trucks. But we really worked with the existing surfaces. So this is existing concrete that we just suggested power washing and painting and bringing in some, umbrellas and benches. And then this is existing grass that we suggested kind of creating a couple of berms for and creating a little play space for kids. Painting the back wall, painting some street and sidewalk elements. Thinking about this as an Instagram moment, right? This is something that they are eventually working toward. I just wanted to point out, we did a lot of budget analysis. You can have a really inexpensive project. Neither of these budgets are that inexpensive. This, you could be as low as $40,000 or $150,000, or you could just get started. This is what they have right now. They've just pressure washed the concrete and provided some benches and umbrellas at this point. So it can be phased over time, but with the goal of eventually drawing interest to the area, interest to the project, and hopefully being able to develop this further. Main Street, actually, this is not a public lot, it's a private lot, but they leased it out from the owner for a number of years. So that is one way to kind of create a temporary public space in a private setting. Here are a couple of other examples. A vacant lot, you pull up some food trucks and provide some benches and seating. In this case, they just rolled out some turf in an ugly lot and provided seating and umbrellas. And then this is a little bit more advanced project, but they brought in a shipping container, and it's a after-school program for youth in that vacant lot. So a couple of different programmatic ideas there. Okay, get your camera out again, right? So more grant opportunities. The NEA Our Town grant, has anybody ever applied for that and gotten it? Okay, we have gotten that a couple of times. It is like a super painful grant to write. It takes forever, but I can give you some tips on that if you're interested in applying for it. Here's just a whole other list of things. I haven't applied for all of these before, but they're all great resources for you. And then lastly, I think it's really important to bring kids to our downtowns. And so think about making spaces specifically for them, because if you bring the kids, their parents and the rest of the family will come too. This is a project we did. It's actually an outdoor classroom for a local school, but the concept could be taken to any kind of downtown space, a vacant lot, or even, a large sidewalk. This was a project we did called the Art Yard. We got a grant from the Mississippi Arts Commission for $10,000, and we created an outdoor classroom using these modules that we developed in our previous project that I showed you. But just want to show you some temporary kind of gathering spaces. These could be for kids and families, but this is one such layout where we got yoga mats. We got these little drawing horses that are made for kids. They're really affordable. We partnered those with our little cubes that we designed, and then created an outdoor classroom environment. We hired an artist to create a shade structure that also doubled as an opportunity to hang kids' artwork. And then here you can see the artwork was displayed throughout the site. Again, some of the really inexpensive materials, the yoga mats, the drawing horses. We use kitchen rubber mats as surface on the ground because they're kind of soft, gives you a little buffer. But you could also take these tiles and move them all around. So again, they could be used at a public school or any school or downtown area. And the thing about this project is that we wanted to be able to share it with all of you if it was something that you wanted to incorporate into your community or your schools. And we've created an outdoor classroom toolkit. This is free. It's on our website right now. And we'd encourage you to do this in your community. We've got everything from, thinking about your ground surface, thinking about the design, thinking about what materials to use, how to implement it, the budget, choosing a site. We've got all that covered. So for this project, we got a $5,000 grant from the Idea Shop to create those seating modules. And then we got the $10,000 grant from the Mississippi Arts Commission. And I know Louisiana and Arkansas, you have a sister kind of organization that you could potentially get money from for that. We provided in-kind design services and volunteer labor. Again, with every single project we do, my kids get roped into it. So I'm sure some of you are like that in your communities too. Your kids are actively involved as free labor. But that was a project that I think that you could incorporate both at your schools or in your downtowns. So in wrapping it all up, our downtown public spaces obviously play a critical role in moving our communities forward. The economic benefits are correlated with investment in quality public space improvements. And the way we plan, design, and program downtown public spaces has the real potential to reshape, revitalize, and catalyze future growth. So think about all of these as opportunities to create those great public spaces. This is my contact information. Be sure and give us a follow if you will. And I'll answer any questions that you might have.